just started off with the questions and answers. I mean, I think I'll, because we have another film critic here, so maybe he should just talk a little about the film that he's done, which is obviously it's an exceptional experiment because 11 people have directed the same film. It's not 11 films, it's not 11 segments in a film, but it's one film, scripted and directed by 11 different talents. And so how that came into his head and how it was worked out is something that we would like to know. Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about the film before we start off with the question.
Well, there are two things to it. One is, as a film critic, I've always believed that India has different kinds of cinema. We have the mainstream, we have the art house, and then even within the mainstream, we have the regional, the cinemas from Tamil Nadu is very different from similar cinema that's made in Kerala or Calcutta. So that was one aspect that, that there is a disconnect between the cinemas of India, where the commercial guys kind of look down at art house, they don't relate to it, and commercial guys like almost with contempt that how can you do this, like you sold my mother kind of a thing, So being a film critic, I've interacted with a lot of these filmmakers and I've seen this disconnect. So I thought it would be interesting to get everybody together on a project for an experiment. The second thing is I had just the kind of script that could have achieved that. It was a story of a filmmaker's life. Now, if I were to make that movie, the story would probably be redundant because I think we all date the same kind of person again and again. So it wouldn't have been exciting if I had even tried to write the whole film myself. So I thought, here's a challenge. We can explore, and I genuinely believe that we don't write good parts for women, roles for women in our movies. So I thought this is a good way where, every director is given a task to explore a woman as a genre. One is drama, one is comedy, one is like conversation, one is mystery, one is a tragedy. Well, we had wanted this to be like a quick film. Initially, the plan was to make it part of the Goa project, which is like a seminar kind of an event. But then we couldn't get the seed money we needed to shoot the film there. But then we also thought that if we shooted it in Goa, the 10 films are going to more or less look similar because similar backdrops and all. Then it occurred to us that, we are strongest wherever we live. Like if I'm from Chennai, I'm strongest in Chennai. If he's in Bombay, he's strongest in Bombay. If Hemant's in Delhi, Q is in Calcutta, he's strongest in Calcutta. Anu is in London, she's strongest in London. So we thought this just expands the canvas. Let's make the canvas even bigger because given the different backgrounds, the film just becomes that much more. If the idea is to explore the disconnects between different, styles and the looks and the feels, let's go all out. Let's have the film all over the place, literally. Let's have London, San Francisco, Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, Chennai, even a village called Kuvatur to bring the contrast, So so every director had the choice who he wanted to cast, who went best with what he was trying to do. And sometimes it was also geographical availability. If the actress was a Bengali actress, we went with that. If the film is set in Calcutta, then obviously it's a Bengali speaking girl. If the film is set in a village, then the girl is from that part of the world.
Okay, so now you've actually whetted my appetite. I haven't, unfortunately, seen the film yet. I missed it yesterday because it clashed with something else. So I'll definitely go and see it tomorrow, and maybe we can have an offline discussion after that. And obviously, I'll come back to what you intend to do with the film in terms of distribution and what strategy you have. Jack, who's from Mexico, has a film here, One for the Road. And we were having this conversation on the way from the hotel to this place, and you were saying that your film for the distributors in Mexico is not commercial enough, and for people like us, it's not arty enough. So would you like to sort of say where your film actually belongs?
Well, I was saying that what happened with my first movie and what happens with this one is that for distributors it's not that commercial, and for film festivals sometimes it's not too art. It has to do with the reason has to do that it's a comedy, and many times this is not the case, but in many festivals believe that comedies are like a second class. I love comedies, and for me, a good comedy is it could be even stronger than a very violent movie or a drama. A good comedy can say something even more. It could be like a very sharp knife to say something that you don't like, something that hurts to you that you would like to change.
So you think comedies are not taken seriously enough?
Yes. See, comedies are not taking. and not,
That's the problem with most middle of the road cinema.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I'll come back to you, Jack, on that. And Abbas, I mean, your film I've seen. I mean, not here, but somewhere else. And obviously, it's an intense film. So just tell the audience a little bit, and then we can go on.
An introduction about the film.
What he's trying to say in the film.
یک معرفی کلی در مورد اینکه فیلم چیه چی میخواد بگه.
This woman who's
آره. فیلم فصل فراموشی فریبا در مورد یک زن هست که گذشته تاریکی داشته و اکنون در این فیلم میبینیم که تمام تلاشش این هست که پاک زندگی بکنه و سالم زندگی بکنه.
My film is about a woman named Fariba, whose past life is dark and bitter, but he wants to forget this past and start a new life and a new and good life. It is about a woman who was a prostitute, but she now wants to start a new life. But unfortunately, the society does not allow her to start a new life as an innocent woman. And the society again encourages her to go back to her past as a prostitute.
So what I understood from the film is obviously the character of the woman is very strong. She's a woman who will do anything it takes to ensure that she can continue, being with the man who she marries. And so what, is this an original screenplay or is it based on a story written by a writer?
میگه اونطور که من فهمیدم کاراکتر زن این فیلم یک زن خیلی قویه، هر کاری میکنه که زندگیش رو با شوهرش، هر کاری که لازمه انجام میده که زندگیش با شوهرش دوام داشته باشه. میگه این بر اساس یک واقعیت یا یک داستان؟
نه بگو نه فقط این داستان واقعی است، که از این داستان ها تو ایران بسیار اتفاق میفته. ما بر اساس داستان واقعی این فیلم رو ساختیم.
This story is a real story, and such stories quite often happen in Iran. And we made our film on the basis of a real story.
و هست راجع به شهر روزانه‌ای که هستن کسانی که دختر هستن و این کارو میکنن.
One of the points we try to depict in this film is that unfortunately many prostitutes are married women, and we have and it is somehow a double shame. So we have shown this problem in our film.
So obviously it's talking about the status of women in Iranian society. So are things really, I mean, this bad, or does the film? I mean, obviously this woman does not give in. So you do leave with a sense of hope. So Abbas trying to tell us that although the situation might be bad, but there is a way out.
میگه همونطور که میدونیم این فیلم در مورد یک زن میگه وضعیت یک زنه. آیا وضعیت در واقعیت وضعیت زنان اینقدر مشکله یا خب این یه خورده چیز
بگو ما اینقدر مشکل ما سعی کردیم چون این فیلم یکم زیباتر نشون بدیم. این زنی که توی یه زندانه فقط از زندان کوچکتره میشه بیاد زندان بزرگتر تو جامعه وضعیت سخت‌تری داره. پلیس بهش گیر میده.
آره. Actually, we have tried not to show all the reality of the life of such women in the society. In reality, their situation, the condition of such women may be much worse.
بگو تمام زندگی این زن و زنهای مثل این پشت مرده ها سپری میشه.
All the life of, the entire life of such women is behind the bars.
و فکر میکنم زنهای جهان سوم الان چنین وضعیتی دارن که هنوز مرد زندگی
And I think it is the situation and the condition of all the women in third world countries. They are in prisons of their husbands.
I mean, although Oblivion Season is a very, very different kind of film, I mean, somewhere it reminded me of Reza Mir Karimi's Today, Imrose. Have you seen that film? Have you seen it? Yeah, yeah. I mean, about a woman who's trying to escape her fate through, means that are available to her. So, have you? I mean, was your film made before Imrose, Reza Mir Karimi's film?
دیگه فیلم شبیه؟
شما می‌خواید ازش بپرسید که-
نه این چی میگه؟
Could you please repeat your question?
I'm saying is this film reminded me a little of Reza Mir Karimi's Today, which is, I mean, the Persian title is Imrose. Hope I'm getting the pronunciation right. So was Oblivion Season made before Today, or was it at the same time? Because I mean, again, it's a woman who was stuck in a situation, but doing things that that can help her get out of the trap that she is in.
میگه این فیلم شما منو یاد فیلم امروز میرکریمی میندازه. میگه این فیلم رو شما قبل از اون فیلم ساختین؟
بله
قبل از اون.
بله قبل از اون فیلم ساختیم.
Yes, I made my film before the film امروز.
ولی بگو شبیه بگو زنهای ایران تو فیلم ها شبیه همدیگه هستن.
But Iranian women in films are similar to each
چون
other
داستان ها داستان واقعی است.
because the stories are real stories.
Yeah, but that's an interesting point because we often feel that we've seen this woman before in an Iranian film because they all seem to be facing the same predicaments that the character in Oblivion Season does. Yeah, so I'll come back to you. So Anand, would you like first to tell us a little bit about your film and then we'll
D'accord, bonjour. Moi, je suis Ahmed Fijel, je suis comédien sur le film C'est eux les chiens. C'est un film qui parle, qui est typiquement très très original.
It's a film which it is called Their Dogs and it's a very original film.
C'est un film qui parle d'un personnage qui s'appelle 404, qui était emprisonné en 1981 dans des grèves qui s'appellent les émeutes de pain.
It's about a person who's called 404 and he was put to prison in 1981 and he comes back after 30 years.
Et il ressort 30 ans plus tard, en 2011, en pleine révolution des printemps arabes.
He comes out from the prison in 2011 in the in the heat of the Arab Spring.
Et dans son chemin, il croise une équipe de télévision publique qui sortent faire en 2011 des reportages sur des mouvements sociaux marocains.
And he's found by a crew, a film crew, who are doing a report on this movement, Arab movement.
Et cette équipe de télévision va le suivre et il va faire une recherche avec lui sur son passé. Et du coup, le film, c'est le rush du reportage.
And this film, this television crew goes with him, searching for his past, and this is the story about this film.
Voilà.
It's a film that tells a story, and at the same time, it's also a reportage. I mean, there's a documentary feel to it. So, am I right there?
En fait, non, c'est pas un documentaire, c'est typiquement fiction. Du coup, oui, on voit la caméra qui bouge, c'est un film qui sort un petit peu du classique des classiques du cinématographique.
No, it's not in the documentary genre, but it's a fiction.
Et comme j'ai dit, la caméra bouge et tout ça, c'est un film qui, en fait, comme le réalisateur aime dire, c'est un film qui est youtubien.
The camera moves all the time. It's a kind of film that you see in the YouTube kind of film.
C'est comme les révolutions, quand on a vu les révolutions en Égypte ou bien en Tunisie, il y a toujours la caméra dedans. Du coup, c'est comme un portable. Il y a toujours la caméra dedans. C'est ça en fait le film. On a essayé de faire parler aussi la caméra. La caméra devient un autre personnage, le cinquième personnage.
Here the camera is becoming another actor in the film, and the camera moves all the time.
Et ce qui est bien aussi dans le film, c'est s'il y avait le réalisateur qui cadre, et aussi il y avait les comédiens qui cadrent. Du coup, pour garder cette fraîcheur de l'image et cette fraîcheur du concept.
There is a kind of freshness of image and the concept there. Both of this, one side is the direction, and one side is the images.
Hello. Yeah. So, I mean, if I'm not wrong, Nabil Ayush is one of the producers.
Ouais, c'est le
on the
producteur.
film.
Yeah.
But Nabil is not known to make films like these. Nabil makes more narrative films, more from what I've seen of his work. Is it?
Nabil, il fait les films plus narratifs.
And are Nabil and the director?
Non, c'est pas Nabil Ayous, c'est le producteur. Donc, c'est lui qui a produit le film, et le réalisateur, c'est Hicham Leslie.
Nabil is he's in the production and he produced the film, and Issam Nasri he is the director of the film.
Yeah, Sham Nasri is. And also, I mean, a man who goes to jail 30 years ago comes back to the Morocco of today, and so, I mean, is the film trying to tell us that things haven't changed, and that, you know, despite all the efforts that are being made, the Arab Spring that happened, I mean, things are going to go back to square one?
Qu'est-ce qu'il a vu après il est sorti du film? Est-ce que tout a changé? Comment il réagit?
En fait, comment il réagit, c'est un revenant. Le personnage 404, et aussi on a donné ce numéro 404, puisque c'est un revenant. 404, si on cherche sur l'informatique, ça veut dire c'est un erreur système.
The name of the person, the main actor is 404, and that tells about this is the error of the system. So he is kind of a misfit in this world. When he comes back.
Et aussi c'est un personnage qui sort après 30 ans de prison, qui n'ose pas dire ce nom, qui suit pas la révolution technologique. Ce qui nous donne un personnage qui est ce qui nous donne de la comédie noire. dans le film.
He doesn't know what has happened along these years, and he's kind of lost, and that gives a kind of black comedy to the story, to the narration.
Et pour revenir à ta question, c'est en fait c'est un film qui est très très absurde, comme le théâtre. Ça veut dire, comme l'image du premier film, on voit sur la caméra sur une proportion circulaire.
It's a kind of absurd film, and the first image that we can see, it's a kind of a circle image that we can see. So it's kind of absurd, kind of a theater.
Ce que signifie, c'est le film parle d'un peuple, nous les Marocains, de cette époque-là. C'est un peuple qui est bloqué sur, qui veut pas réfléchir à son histoire. Du coup, en 81, il y avait une grande révolution au Maroc. Ça veut dire que c'est une révolution, il y avait beaucoup de morts, il y avait beaucoup de prisonniers, et même maintenant, je pense qu'il y a des prisonniers, je sais pas. Ils disent que c'est fini, mais on sait pas. C'est comme ce personnage qui est sorti comme ça en plein 2011 et qu'il voit la même chose qui se répète. Du coup, c'est qui se répète. Et à la fin du film, il rencontre son neveu, et son neveu, au début du film, elle était sur la manifestation. Il se manifeste, et du coup, c'est à la fin du film, il le trouve, il le prend en câlin, et du coup, c'est la réconciliation des générations.
Actually, he was in the revolution of 1981 in Morocco. It was a big revolution, and people were killed and put into prison, and it lasted for 4 days. And this man is of that era, and he comes back to 2011 when the Arab Spring is going on, and he meets his nephew, and he takes him in his, he just embraces him, and that's the reconciliation he is having with that, the earlier years of his which has been lost, and the new generation which is also participating in the new events of revolution.
En conclusion, il y a toujours les choses qui se répètent, mais autrement, avec espoir.
So here it's a repetition of things which goes on and go on, but with another twist of the story.
So I'll come to you, Gitanjali. I mean, obviously your film, as the title suggests, is about our country's judicial system and the distortions that creep into how it's applied to the lives of real people. And this film has obviously been it's been a breakthrough because it's gone to Venice, won an award. Mumbai also it won. So were you there with the film in Venice, and how was the so when an audience there sees a film that's so completely Indian,
Yes.
what was the reaction like, and did the story that we were telling get across instantly?
Yes. Venice screening was the premiere of the film, and we were really very anxious to know what will be the reaction of the audience, because it is so local. And but surprisingly, for the whole, hardly anybody left the theatre, and everybody was concentrating and seeing and responding to the dialogues, and we were very surprised. And after the screening, there was standing ovation, and we were all relaxed. And I remember one incident. After I got out of, I was checking out of my hotel, and a person, a lady came to me, and she's saying, "You're bad lawyer, you're bad lawyer." So she completely understood, and she was actually sharing her experiences of court in Italy. And surprisingly, we feel as a developing country that in developed countries the judicial system is much more stronger, it's more it's efficient, but that's not the case. Everybody is relating to the case, and everybody knows what the state what is the state's role in the whole system. So I think common man is the same everywhere. If you are in a developed country or a developing country, we all face the same situation. That's what I feel.
Since you are representing the film in the absence of the director, I mean, I would be keen to know how Chaitanya really worked this out. I mean, were the actors involved in the film before the film began, before we began filming?
Yeah.
Because it looks like a film that's very spontaneous in the way it comes out. So were the actors part of the
Yes.
ideation process?
Yes, actually it was a very long process. The process was very interesting because we almost were workshopping and auditioning for 3 months, 6 months. Like I was auditioned in the month of August, and till January I was not given the role. I was not confirmed with the role. So he was auditioning, he was workshopping with actors, non-professional actors, and the non-actors in the film. So he had to create an ensemble who are comfortable with each other, who will be able to tell the story what he wanted to. So the only professional actors were myself and Vivek Gombar, the producer of the film, and we had to read lot of legal, different cases, books on laws. We heard a lot of lawyers, cases. What do they feel about different cases, about the sections? What is an FIR? What is what is a law? What is an act? Everything, every detail, every jargon was explained to us. Then we attended a lot of court sessions. I actually followed a public prosecutor, and I attended her court sessions. I asked about her personal life. So she used to travel by train from a small suburb in Mumbai to the South Mumbai, to the session court in South Mumbai. So it was a long process, and that's how it wasn't an improvised script. It was a well written script, and everything is rehearsed, and everything is pre-decided.
I mean, I believe Chaitanya is only 27 years old.
Yeah, he started
So
work.
did you expect so much, rigor from a boy, from a boy who's making
Yes,
a film?
absolutely. When I read the script, I was really surprised that it's been written by a 27-year-old, and this was 2 years back, so he was almost 25 and a half then. So I believed in the script, and I think most of the people who were in the film liked the script a lot and liked the story a lot. And other thing is the confidence, we got the confidence because while we were doing these workshops and rehearsals, everybody was involved, not just actors but non-actors, semi-professional actors, and even the technicians, even sound person used to be there in the rehearsals, even the assistant camera person or the camera person whenever he had time. We all were, makeup artists, everybody was there, and I think that created a bond between us. And when we were on floors, we knew each other so well that and because of this process, we got to understand Chaitanya's confidence as a director. And I feel that he's that young and he won't be able to handle the whole scape of the film.
And to ask you a general question about Marathi cinema, I mean, obviously it's one of the most dynamic cinemas we have currently in India. A lot of great films are coming out. So do you think that this generation and the one that started say 10 years earlier, they've been instrumental? I mean, they've brought this kind of discipline into filmmaking and this kind of understanding of the medium, which is like manifesting itself in the quality of the cinema that is emerging.
Yeah, I think we all are the product of that, whatever is happening around us. We have seen such period in 70s, and now again I think we are, we are regenerating as a society. So I think that has affected Chaitanya, but Chaitanya himself is a very self-taught person. He's not from any film school, and personally I feel that this is the best period I'm seeing, in films especially, because in Marathi cinema, like Fandry, for example, it's a very different films, but it has done commercially very well. and it's a very big surprise, you know, and people are very happy. Like Elizabeth Ekadashi, the person, yeah, the person who made Harishchandra's Factory, Paresh Mukashi's film, it's doing well. It's like running for the 5th week. So I think we had this tradition, but we lost it in between, and now again the Marathi filmmakers and cinema goers are going to the theatres and watching films.
And speak a little bit about yourself. Are you a theatre actress, also doing cinema, or a film actress who also does theatre? I mean,
No,
what
no,
is-
I'm basically a theatre artist. I was trained at National School of Drama. I've been doing theatre for last 20 years, and currently I'm doing a play called Piya Behrupiya, which is in Hindi. It's an adaptation of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, and we opened our show at the Globe 2 years back, and there 37 Shakespearean plays were performed in 37 different languages. We were one of them, and recently 15 days back we were in Kochi performing here. So I've been touring with my play, and I've been doing Marathi stage and Hindi plays.
any upcoming films?
No, I'm not doing much of, I'm not into films. That's why I think I'm in Chaitanya's film. Otherwise I would have lost this role.
Okay, so Abhinav is the only one who's left who I haven't asked, directed a question at. So what was your, not contribution, what was your, role in the whole process? That because it obviously came out of Sudhish's head.
He has conducted throughout himself, because 11 directors, you can understand, 11 egos, and we all were like,
And then multiplied by the actors.
yeah, multiplied by, so it was his job. It was, all the trouble was his. We just went ahead, shot our thing. Initially it was supposed to be 2 days job, that everyone was supposed to shoot in 2 days simultaneously, wherever they are. So that was interesting. The
So, I mean, there are at least 3 critics that I know of in this project. So, do you, Raja, and
Me, Raja,
and
Pratim,
Suparn?
and Suparn.
And the Pratim also?
Yeah,
Okay.
photograph.
So now tell me something, because this is a joke, I mean, that critics are either failed filmmakers or wannabe filmmakers. So, where do you belong?
Probably in the wannabe filmmakers.
So, obviously, this is what...
Actually, I'd probably belong in both.
Yeah, sure. No, but this is your second film, I mean, one and a, third. Good morning, good night? No.
Good night, good morning, that's
Good night,
the
good morning.
word, and this one.
This one, okay. When you picked the directors, I mean, was there some logic behind it? I mean, what was the logic? Like, Q is a very headstrong person. You're not, I mean,
No, well, I was going for 12 people, 11 people who will not see eye to eye, like completely different ends of the spectrum. So if there was Q, I had to contrast it with the girl who made Aisha, Rajshri Oja, or like even at some point there seemed to be like more men than doing the films. So we actually went and asked Anu also if she can join the team. We said at least 2 out of 10 stories, if they're women, that would be good. So we got, but the stories are per se of women themselves. So we thought it would be interesting to get at least 2 women to do it.
Yeah.
Even Anu Menon, though she's done Bollywood, she's done a conversation film. Her whole film is a 2-character film.
So, and what is the distribution strategy? I mean, is there a strategy in place? Because it's obviously unlike anything that has been done before. So obviously the distributors will be a little confused. They wouldn't know what to do with it. So,
Well, I think that's our biggest strength, that there's no precedent for this, so they can't say that it failed before. So I think that's the thing. But yeah, our producer Manish Mundra has been quite prolific in his films. He's acquiring a huge profile right now. Manish made Aankhon Dekhi last year. His Dhanak is going to Berlin, Nagesh Kokunor's film. America is going to Sundance. X is here in IFFK. So it depends on the strength of your producer, that whether or not you're able to get a good release. And I think Manish has been quite hands-on with that, figuring out strategies. So even he was here personally here, though he's like one of the busiest people on the planet. He flew down just for one evening and flew back.
because since you mentioned Aankhon Dekhi, I believe he got in touch with Rajat on Facebook or Twitter, whatever. He said, I'll produce a film for you. And since it's a film is set in Old Delhi, where he also I think comes from, and so was the story similar in your case?
With Shiladitya Bora, the programming head for Directors Rare, is my co-executive producer. We go back a long way because Shiladitya released Good Night, Good Morning. That was the first Directors Rare release. Ever since he's released 60 films under the Directors Rare banner. So we've constantly been talking about, the indie films. We need to set an example and see how we can make money through this, because there's no point just making films which don't make money at all. So one of the conscious decisions we made was like, let's keep the costs low. So we'll get people who believe in this, doing a different kind of cinema, who will be more than willing to be part of the experiment, and work within a budget so that, and come on board as producers. So tomorrow, even if we lose, we don't lose anything. This is a project where we thought there's no shame failing because it's something which we believe in. Secondly, that gave us the freedom to do whatever we wanted to do. So apart from, say, censor restrictions, we just went all out. And if you ask for Q, he wouldn't even think about that. So that's how Shiladitya brought Manish on board. That's how it happened.
Before we come back, some more questions. I think I'll open it to the audience if any of you want to ask anyone here on the podium any question. Rajat? Anybody? Any question at all? Okay, so we'll continue. Yeah, so I think I'll come back to Abbas because Iranian cinema is of course extremely popular on the festival circuit. Every festival in India, every festival I go to, anywhere in the world, Iranian cinema is a. What do you do? There's a question. Yeah. One second, yeah, please.
എല്ലാ ബഹുമാനമുണ്ട് എന്നാലും ഈ സിനിമയുടെ പുറകെ
I'll ask in English because we won't understand. Somebody will interpret.
ട്രാൻസ്ലേഷൻ ഇല്ല ഇല്ല
Will you interpret?
ട്രാൻസ്ലേഷൻ ഇല്ല
No, one second, he will do it.
ഈ സിനിമയുടെ പുറകെ ഇങ്ങനെ നടന്ന് വിശദീകരിക്കേണ്ട ആവശ്യമുണ്ടോ? ദാറ്റ്സ് മൈ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ. ഞാൻ ട്രാൻസ്ലേറ്റ് അവർക്ക് വിഷമമാണ്. സിനിമയുടെ പുറകെ ഇങ്ങനെ നടന്ന് വിശദീകരിക്കേണ്ട ആവശ്യമുണ്ടോ? സിനിമ തന്നെ അവർക്ക് പറയാനുള്ളത് പറയല്ലേ, സിനിമ തന്നെ അവർക്ക് പറയാനുള്ളത് പറയല്ലേ, പിന്നെ ഇതിനാണ് ഇങ്ങനെ വന്നിട്ട് പുറകെ വിശദീകരിക്കുന്നത്? ദാറ്റ്സ് ഓൾ.
I'm not interested in the question. Actually, you're asking the question, cinema is speaking, why the people are speaking like this?
Okay. No, then there would be no. Because cinema speaks, you also need to speak because it's about communication. No. Generally, if cinema is supposed to speak, yes. Why are we speaking? We don't need to speak. Cinema will speak. No. So I was talking about the Iranian cinema, and its popularity on the festival circuit. So, is a film like Oblivion Season or the other films of this kind, which are not really, in the popular, it's not, the structure isn't popular. Do they do well commercially in the Iranian market? Answer. Might be. Yes. Hello. Hello.
My film and such films, since they are of independent cinema and the government does not support us, thus they cannot be very successful in on the market. They can't be very successful money-making films, but they mostly concern art, not the commercial aspects.
But I would also like to know a little bit about, the Farabi Foundation, for instance, which has been promoting Iranian cinema globally. There is also, I think, Iran Film House or Tehran Film House, which also, because we go to these film festivals, and so don't they support cinema like this, independent cinema?
Such institutions not only didn't support us, but we tried to prevent them from troubling us. They are not helpful. They are not supportive, but they are also sometimes trouble us. This film has not so far been released in Iran.
When was it completed?
Around 8 months ago.
So, I mean, is he still talking to, potential distributors? Is it likely to come out anytime soon?
So far, I have not been successful in finding any distributor. So I'm concentrating on international film festivals.
Okay, so thank you. Jack, I think I'll wake you up now. First talk a little bit about the Mexican cinema market, because its proximity to Hollywood, to the US, must be making things difficult, because all those American, the Hollywood blockbusters will be swamping the market. So how does a Mexican filmmaker like you operate outside that system and survive?
You don't survive.
You have survived. You made a second film.
Yes, there is a saying that in Mexico it was very famous that says poor Mexico is too close to the United States and too far from God, because being close to the United States is good and bad. And it's true, the US productions have all the market. In Mexico there are 2,000 screens, and sometimes comes Spider-Man with 1,000 and another one with another 1,500. They just take the whole market. But right now Mexican cinema is in a very good moment, because there are many incentives from the government and funds to make movies. And we are doing 150 movies a year, which for Mexico is very good. There were moments 20 years ago that Mexico produced 7 to 15 movies a year. Now 150, it's the best moment in Mexican cinema. And there are independent, most of the filmmakers are independent filmmakers, which are telling stories that they want to tell. But now, in the last 2 years, we realized that Mexico is an important market, that we too can make commercial movies. So there's been 2-3 examples of Mexican movies that have done very good commercially. Never in the history of Mexico that happened before. It's two movies that made even better than Hollywood movies. And
So what kind of films are these?
Comedies.
Comedies.
once I was in Cannes, and I was asking, there was an Italian distributor. There was an Italian distributor that told me that in Italy, they used to have 50, 40, they used to have less than 10% of the screens for Italian movies, and now they have 40%. And I said, wow, how did you do that? Like from 7% to 40%. And they said, we started to do local comedies. We realized that people like their own stories, and they like, and they started to do that, and little by little, they took the market from the US. So I think that's happening in Mexico. Some people realize that comedies can do well, and are doing commercial comedies, which is also, there is a difference. They are doing commercial comedies, just like the Americans are doing, just in Spanish with local stories, and they're doing very well.
So your film is not a commercial comedy. It's a
Not
it's
a
a more
commercial.
personal, independent,
Yes.
spirited
Yes.
comedy.
It's-
So just speak a little bit about what the film is about, so that.
Well, the movie that I did, I wrote it with two more writers, young writers, and we were thinking, we wanted to do a movie, and we were thinking about what the subject of the movie should be. And we started to think about the day we will become old. And we started to speak about our fears when we get to that day. And we started to speak about the moment our bodies won't react and won't do what we want. We won't be able to run, or walk, or we wouldn't be able to hear or see. And we started to speak also about the day our friends will die. And we took all these fears and all these concerns, and we said, we want to make a movie about this. And we had two choices, like a very strong drama, or maybe a comedy. And we like comedies. Every time I try to write a strong drama, I end up writing a comedy. So we made a movie about being old, about friendship, and it's all in a road movie. It's a road movie. It's all.
So one Mexican filmmaker we encounter in film festivals is Carlos Racadas.
Yes.
Who's big. I mean,
Yes.
so how is he viewed in Mexico? I mean, is he somebody who's looked up to as, or
It's
is he?
funny because in Mexico, almost nobody watches him. Nobody. Nobody.
Okay, so why is that?
Because they don't like their movies. They don't like the subjects. These are very strong movies. After the screening yesterday, one young man approached me and told me, why is it that Mexico only makes violent movies? And I said, it's not that we only make those movies, but those are the only movies that are shown in film festivals. That year that I was in Cannes, they showed 3 Mexican movies, one after another, the worst of Mexico, the worst. I was already ashamed of saying that I'm Mexican.
Yeah, I can understand that feeling, because even the Indian films that get into Cannes now are all violent films about people shooting each other. I mean,
Yes.
those are the only people who are interesting enough now. I mean,
And I have a theory about that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I have a theory. in many times in European countries, European festivals of very prestige, they see a third world country like Mexico that they are killing each other and kidnapping each other, and they say, well, let's have this film and let's help these guys a little bit, and maybe the whole world will see about their problems. And it's called patronizing, you know, that it makes them feel a little bit that they are better, and they're not.
So, Sudesh, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, the kind of films that, say, Mexico or Indian films that get into these, I mean, obviously now films like Court and Labor of Love are very different, but the violent films that get in, is that what makes them?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both. Every festival has a profile. I think in the US it's more streamlined. Like if they have a fantastic film festival, then they know they're looking at films which have balls to the wall action. So I guess every festival is known for a certain kind of cinema. So I guess maybe Cannes or Sundance likes to be known with, you know, shock value kind of cinema. But then there are also different festivals which are looking for a specific thing. Like for example, when they look at India and when they think we need Indian representation, they probably pick films which go deeper into India according to them. So they think India is in the villages. So you know, so they're not interested in the cities. They're not interested in that. They're more interested in what is like you know it might be a little cruel or stereotypical for me to call it poverty porn, because they're not all of it is poverty porn. It's probably a variation of that. They're looking for something which would represent the third world, like he said, so that, you know, say it's India. This is what India is. We're showing the world what India is. You know, so any film which is in English, made out of India, has very little chance to get into any international film festival.
Yeah, so, I mean, what was your experience like? I mean, did you have any experience of any brushes with film festivals? Did you send your film and was the film rejected because they just felt, you know, Indians can't be like this, they can't be so sophisticated and, you know?
No, I have a theory about festivals. If you apply to the festival, no, they think you need them, so they don't take you. So best don't apply to festivals. If they get it, that's the only way. That's the best way to go. That's what I think.
Because we were speaking about Manish. It was 4 of his films we're talking about are in various festivals now. So what is? I mean, has he ever talked about The Secret, or is it just a coincidence that? Because there was this.
I really do want to sit with him over a drink and tell him, boss, how did you do it? Because I have no idea.
Yeah, because there was this year in Cannes, 2011 or 12, when there were 4 Indian films in different sections, and all of them had Anurag involved in some way or the other. As director, as co-producer, as...
I think Abhinav has more experience dealing with international film festivals, so I'll let him. How many festivals did those go to?
It went to around by now 32 festivals, sir.
So,
Yeah, can you repeat your question again?
no, what I'm saying is, like Jack said, that they pick only a certain kind of Mexican film or a certain kind of Indian film. So is that the feeling you also get when you go to these festivals? Because they want to only show what they think is India is.
Yeah, absolutely. The way he said that poverty porn or third world country, we want to showcase them. Yeah, there is some bit of preconceived notion towards these countries, that this is the content we want to pick from with this country. For the matter of fact, Vietnam or some other countries, there is very specific genre of films they only end up picking. They will never pick up happy films from there. It's not a Harishchandra Factory, or like she has just mentioned, Ekadashi, Elizabeth Ekadashi. It's fabulous film, but I don't think so that it is from many places.
It's too simple for them. I mean, they don't...
Yeah, the beauty in those films are they are simple.
See, I think the problem is the middle of the road films. You know, the commercial films have their market, the hardcore art house have their market. The guys who are trying to build a bridge between both these things, they're left in the middle of the road. There is no market from middle of the road.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean...
Excuse me,
Namaz.
sir.
Huh.
One question.
Yeah, please.
Why we are producing films
And you are segregated into Mexican film, Indian films. The world has one. The world has one film.
No, I know.
Isn't it? I agree with this. Here I am saying that you are always saying marketing several things. We are getting, they are the exemplary directors and they know how they have to express the technical views. What about the pictures, goodness and scripting, several things. You are always discussing here only marketing thing.
Because
That is not, it is a one side. That I will accepting. And I asked, what is the motivations of film producing? Gaining or looting the common man or to educate them? That any one of the directors may be convey their message to.
no, so if you are not talking about marketing at all, you're talking about taking the films. No. No. It's,
For evaluations of these things, art film or commercial films to be, government may be segregated and evaluate that things. Then only the art of this film artness or goodness will be erased. That's a simple things I ask, that to be evaluated.
I'm trying to answer, I mean, these people will also
Sir,
answer.
I have problems with labeling commercial and art cinema. The more you put things into labels, you're actually forcing a filmmaker to make a film of a certain kind, which means that you are controlling the art. You're suppressing freedom of the artist by saying, this is commercial and this is art. And then you create a market for commercial, then you create a market for art. Then what about the other things that are between commercial and art? That is the majority which is always left in the lurch. Because there are so many of us who want to make films, there is an artist in us, there is also some part of it which wants us to recover the money that we are putting in. So you can't classify and say commercial art. Please ban these words because you are really hurting our creativity and freedom.
Because ultimately a filmmaker makes the film he believes in. And I mean, obviously he wants people to watch it. Marketing is a secondary thing, ultimate. Imad, I was coming to you. I mean, I know for a fact that Indian cinema is very popular in Morocco. I mean, not just Britain, I mean a lot of films, because I once was speaking to Nabil and he said he also grew up on a staple of Bollywood films, big commercial films. So what is your experience? I mean, are Indian films really that big in Morocco?
Les films indiens sont populaires en Maroc et
C'est vrai. En fait, on a une très grande culture cinématographique indienne au Maroc. Ça, c'est à l'époque, en fait. Je parle de entre 1980 et 2000. Parce que là, après de 2000 à 2015, on a un grand problème des salles au cinéma au Maroc, ce qui fait on n'a pas vraiment un public maintenant cinématographique qui va beaucoup au cinéma. Maximum, maintenant, si on a eu le box-office, c'est à 250 000 spectateurs. Mais le cinéma indien, c'est vrai, on a une très vraie culture. On a même des Marocains qui sont appris de parler l'indien à cause des films de cinéma. Voilà.
the Indian films are very popular. They were very popular once in the 80s, but day by day the cinema halls, they were closed down, and people they were never to go to see the films. So that happened. But anyway, it's still very popular, and still people use the words, Indian words like Hindi words, etc. So that's very popular in Morocco.
I think I'll come back to you, Jack. I mean, what is the way forward? We were talking about taking the right kind of films from Mexico to the world. So, is there an organization that backed by the government that helps these films reach out to the world? I mean, is there a mechanism.
There is a government institution, cinema institution that funds movies, and if your movie is funded by them, they're gonna handle the distribution to film festivals. And if that happens, it's very good because you are almost assured that they're gonna give your movie directly to programmers all over the world. But if you do a movie without them, they won't even receive your movie to show to film fest. Although the institution is for everybody, they only help movies that they funded. And so most of Mexican filmmakers make movie through this institution. But sometimes you do a short film that you can get together with friends and ask for favors, and you make a short film, and maybe it's a good short film, but you don't have the contacts with the programmers all over the world, and the institution only will distribute the shorts that they produce. So it helps to have contacts in the film festivals also. It helps to know who to reach and who to give your movie, your film.
And Sudhish, this Goa film project, from where where X the film emerged, would you like to talk about it? What is it? If people need information, where does it happen? I mean, it happens in Goa, but when and how?
The Goa project is not just a film-based thing. It's a bridge between all kinds of artists, whether painters, singers, musicians, graphic artists, feminists, NGOs, entrepreneurs. So everybody gets together, and it's like, so nobody knows anyone, but they all get together. They spend a weekend together to see if they can work with each other. So that, because the next big thing, or a breakthrough in technology or idea or creative idea, will only come through a synthesis of arts and commerce and social responsibility and issues and everything. So it's not just a film project. It's a larger holistic look at what can we do in terms of creations or inventions, not just artistically but also scientifically or societally relevant kind of things. It's called the Goa project. It is an annual thing, and it is completely by the people, as in people pitch what they want to do what they want to do during those events. So I had pitched this as an idea during the Goa project that we could get filmmakers and make a film. That's how it started. This year, in fact, from next year, they have something called the Goa project projects, where people can submit proposals on what they want to do and then look for partnerships there. It could be anything. It could be art related, music related, dance related, film related, or even campaign related to create social responsibility, or theater related. It could be pretty much anything under the sun. Yeah, it's called the goaproject.com.
There's been a screening of Court here already? No, here. Yeah, so what was the response like? Did you interact with the audience here? And how, did you feel that this audience is different from the audiences you've dealt with so far with Court?
I think the response was very good, and whenever you whenever you can feel the vibe that they're understanding everything, and after I think third or fourth scene there were clappings, and as part of the crew you feel very happy. And after the screening there were a lot of people who came to me who said that they have seen Court sessions and they felt like exactly what happens in Court has been shown in the film. They've gone through some cases. Many film students came and said that this is the best film they've seen till now. And I think they were very warm, and watching it with Indian audience, I think you feel very good, you know, because you know what is the system, you know what everyone is going through, you know these people, you see every day, and everybody is empathizing with the film and the characters. So I think that's a very, you feel proud to be part of that creation. That's what I think.
So on that note, I think we'll conclude for the day. Thank you, Imad, Abbas, Gitanjali, Sudesh. Yeah, you had it?
Question.
Now
Your
we want to ask
your
you a
question.
Sure, sure.
Now we want to ask you a question. As I told you, this film, Oblivion Season, and such films as my film, which deal with the global problems, the problem, the condition and situation of women all over the world, can such films find get the opportunity to be shown in Indian cinemas? Can we screen this film in Indian cinemas?
Highly unlikely because, see, obviously there are limited screens available. India is a very large country, but we have a lot of screens, but we also have a lot of films. We make more than 1,000 films a year.
میگه خیلی غیر محتمله. درسته اینجا کشور بزرگیه، سینما زیاد داره. ولی در این حال ما خودمون هم داریم هر سال بیشتر از 1000 تا فیلم تولید.
And to add to that, there are the American films which also have a little share of the market. So there are lots of Indian films, hundreds of them, which don't get released because they don't have the potential to make money because they're not made because the filmmaker wants to make money, like he says.
به اینا این رو هم اضافه کنید که بالاخره سینمای هالیوود هم یک سهمی داره.
یعنی مردم هند فقط فیلم هندی میبینن و فیلم اروپایی. منظورش اینه؟
Do you mean that Indian people watch only Indian films and sometimes American films?
And at festivals they watch everything. So every city in India.
Not in festivals. Not
Yeah, I know,
only
but-
in festivals.
Yeah, but because India has lots of festivals. I mean, there's a festival in Bangalore, there's a festival in Chennai, there's Goa, there's Calcutta, there's Kerala here, there's so many festivals that the films that people want to see, they travel to festivals, and the cinema lovers who really want to watch these films come and watch. Outside in the commercial space, cinema theaters, there might not be any space left for, as I said, a lot of Indian films don't get released because the market is too crowded.
میگه همونطور که گفتم من داشتم اضافه میکردم به علاوه اون بعد از اون آمریکایی ضمن این هم در نظر بگیرید که خیلی از فیلم های هندی هم هستن که فرصت پخش پیدا نمیکنن به خاطر اینکه نمیتونن پولشون رو در بیارن. حالا اونایی که عاشق سینمایان میتونن برن فستیوال مختلف، فستیوال زیادی رو داریم میبرن بنگلور و شهرهای مختلف.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you.